Have you guys ever fought demons in FPV?
Like actual demons.
The kind where you change one setting, it gets worse. So you change that setting back and somehow it's even worse. And then you start questioning everything you know about FPV and life in general. That was me trying to tune this thing for the last 48 hours. And literally right when I thought I was gonna turn the corner and get it flying perfectly, one of the motor plugs fell off and the wires are too short to solder to the AIO. So before I tell you about how this drone almost drove me to insanity and made me want to let's rewind, because this drone is actually one of my favorite builds I've ever flown, and I think it's super underrated for a variety of reasons, one of which being the fact that this is a zero solder build, and the components are widely available. So I think it's perfect if you're just getting into building, or if you just want a fun little ripper. So let's talk about the components. I will show the assembly of this thing, including some Betaflight setup, and then I'll take it to the field and show some freestyle footage. Actually, it's old freestyle footage because I wasn't able to capture new stuff because this. But make sure you're subbed because I'm definitely gonna be doing a follow-up on this now that I've refined my skills, because that footage that I'm gonna show is from July. So this is a 2-inch 3S DJI O4 Lite Toothpick build. But this AIO can actually do 2 or 3S, so you can tone it down and run 2S on it, which I think is a huge pro, but more on that later. Let's assemble it. Quick clarification. So when I built this a few months ago, I wasn't comfortable soldering, so I wanted a true plug and play setup, which is why I bought a Pavo 20 used on Amazon and converted it into this build. So if you look here, the no solder route on the left is about 25 bucks more expensive than buying the parts separately, but it's literally zero soldering. So you're paying a little extra to skip the labor, totally up to you. But honestly, for only 25 bucks, I was expecting it to be more when I did this breakdown. So anyways, let's check out the parts IRL.
Transitioning to a top-down shot.
All right, you guys, so this is what we're working with. Apologies for the kind of janky setup. I'm working on a better top-down setup, but this is what I've got for now. So first up, we've got the Alpha RC FI100 frame. I got this on AliExpress. It's a kit that comes with the one-piece carbon fiber bottom plate. The arms are not separate, so if you break these things, you are going to be replacing the entire bottom frame. It does come with this TPU 3D print for the back, which is going to hold antennas, your XT30 power lead, and then a little area for probably a beeper or GPS. I'll probably be cutting this off to remove it to save weight. Finishing off the frame here, we do have this top plate with a little sticky battery pad that came with the kit. These two camera cage carbon fiber inserts. I really like these. I'll show you guys how they fit in a second, but the kit also came with these 3D printed landing feet that just go on the bottom up here. I'm not using these in order to try to save weight. You do get some TPU camera soft mounts that will go in these depending on what type of camera you're mounting. We are not going to be using those today because of a little hack that I'm doing with the O4 Lite, but ultimately this is an O4 Lite frame that's meant for the stock O4 Lite camera. Motors are BetaFPV 1103 8500 kV. I believe they use M1.6 screws, same motors that came on the Pavo 20 non-pro. VTX, we're rocking DJI O4 Lite. The special thing about the O4 Lite in this build is this little flywoo camera housing. So this camera housing basically allows you to slide fit with friction this flywoo wide FOV adapter that makes your FOV about 155 degrees. Look at that, perfect, right? So it goes right on, and I believe this specific one only works if you're using this flywoo camera housing. They come in a bunch of different colors, but moving on. FC, this is a BetaFPV AIO. I'll put the name up next to it, but this is a 2 to 3S AIO. I actually pulled this directly out of the Pavo 20. So I bought a Pavo 20 non-pro on Amazon. It was one with no VTX. I think it was about 100 bucks when I bought it. They've since raised the price a little bit, but I just ripped that thing directly out of the frame. It comes with the capacitor already soldered on. It comes with the battery lead already connected. And the nice thing about this, plug and play 6-pin port for HD VTX, DJI O4 Lite, plugs and plays perfectly. And then you can see we've got motor plugs, which I really enjoy, especially on a 3S build, because I know some of you guys have told me that I should be really removing the plugs on this guy right here, on my 3-inch 1S build. You can see I got the plugs still on there, and the idea being that the less weight, the more performance. However, I think we have a little more wiggle room with this guy here because these motors are more powerful. We are running 3S powertrain, so we don't quite need to shave off every single gram. So anyways, as you can see, we're missing a plug because one of my plugs fell out. So I will be trying to repair that at another time. For now, we're just going to ignore it and pretend that it exists. Oh yeah, and then we do have ELRS built right into here, so super nice. You don't have to add a receiver or anything. Okay, so the first thing I did with this, you guys, is I added some extra gummies. You can see that this has gummies already installed, but check out that clearance on the motor plug. So I'm mounting this with the motor plugs facing downwards because of the capacitor. So I'm gonna add some extra gummies, and I'll show you how that looks, just so we can really isolate vibrations from the FC. Sweet, those gummies are in. Not the best lighting, but hopefully you guys can see that. Now let's add the FC. So for the FC, we're just going to slide it in here, and you want the battery lead and the capacitor to be facing the back of the frame towards the, the tail, the butt, the caboose. All right, you guys, so hopefully you can see we've got a lot more clearance on those motor plugs now. Basically, we're nice and isolated now. You can see with the print here, these cables kind of just slide into this little channel here, just to kind of stay out of the way. Next, we'll go ahead and stack the VTX on top. We're gonna be placing the 6-pin connector on the VTX right on top of the 6-pin connector on the FC. So this will go right on top of that white plug in terms of orientation, just like this. There we go, we're stacked up, boy. Okay, so you can see that stack right there. I think it looks neat enough. We'll add the cables after, and then you can see perfectly perfectly lengthed cable here. This MIPI cable runs just there. That's where the camera is gonna sit eventually, which I'm about to show you after I add these nuts, because I'm a nut. Okay, not bad so far. Pretty easy to build, and I think you can do this pretty quickly if you're not filming yourself doing every single step. These are just little carbon cutouts, and they have channels / grooves to go right into the frame like this. So you can see the cutouts there. Okay, so this is where it gets fun in my opinion. We are going to literally slide fit, okay, we don't need those right now. We're going to slide fit this with friction directly in between those two posts. So we're literally just gonna take it and it's gonna go right in there, and I'll show you how it somehow fits perfectly, almost as if this thing was made for this frame. I'm so happy with this. Okay, so that was kind of difficult to do with one hand. I was trying to show you, so I want to show you from the side here. This is not all the way in yet. You guys see this hole right here? That little circle is where this little cutout from the flywheel housing is going to sit. It's going to sit right in there, and it's going to give you perfect friction to keep this in, as well as allow you to adjust the angle without even screwing anything in there. So watch how it looks after I finesse it into place. And it's really easy, guys. This isn't some like secret hack. You'll figure this out just by intuition. Check that out, you guys. So now it's in there. The one downside is the fact that this sticks out a little bit, but you're still protecting the camera with this TPU. So look at that. I mean, perfectly snug in there, and you'll see how it's gonna become, whoops, well that side's not perfect. Now it is. It kind of like clicks into place even. I don't know if you guys could hear that, but super nice. Now all we have to do is friction fit this top plate on there. It's going to make sure that this thing is snug. Then we're gonna add our screws to the standoffs, and we're good to go, guys. So here she is, top plate on. Yeah, I'm the type of guy that only puts in 2 diagonal screws when I'm just doing a video, so don't do that. All right, a couple things before we hit Betaflight and go fly it. So antenna, you can see those little mounts should accept an antenna. Mine is already at the maximum slack, so if you have a slightly longer dipole, you will just slot it into one of those channels. Okay, but one big thing I want to talk about is the plugs on this. So this is crazy, and I didn't even check the tolerances before I bought this. It just happened to work. So these motors have very, very short wires with plugs. It's meant for the Pavo 20, so because that's a Whoop frame, this is just how it is. Obviously, we're using it on a different frame, but check this out, you guys. They fit almost perfectly, and then you could, like, before I tore this down to show you guys, I just had some electrical tape on the arms right here to cinch down those wires, but they really do fit perfectly, no trimming required. So keep in mind, if you are trying to use these motors on a different build with plugs, they might not reach if your arms are any longer than this. I will be testing these motors out when they arrive on this exact build because they're cheap. They're the same KV, and I needed replacements in case these break. Oh yeah, and then lastly, you guys, I'm just using this Umagod battery strap. I cut it down a little bit because the lipos that I'm using these 3S lipos. I like these 450s. I'm only using 450s on this. I've never tried anything else besides a 550 2S. So I'm using these 450s from Ovonic. I also have these 450s from Tattoo. And where's my GMB pack? Here, I have one pack from GMB. Honestly, they all fly about the same. And then, yeah, just cut down this Umagod strap. You could use any strap. All right, so if you were following along, congrats. You just built this 2-inch 3S DJI O4 Lite little ripper. I'll do my story time on how I was fighting demons at the end of this video, but here's the Betaflight setup. Here's what I've got in Betaflight. So for the ports tab, we'll start with this. Your VTX is on UART4, so you just want to make sure that's enabled with VTX MSP plus DisplayPort enabled on there. UART3, I believe this is going to be your ELRS, so you just enable serial RX there, everything else disabled. Quickly just to finish off that ELRS, so we can go to receiver. You want this receiver tab on UART serial, and then you want it on CRSF under the serial receiver provider. I did enable telemetry here. Everything else is default. So I'll save that. Let me go to the configuration, you guys. So pretty standard here. Our gyro, our board alignment is 0, 0, 0. We haven't flipped anything. Then we're running air mode, of course, and OSD in terms of the other features. That's it for configuration. For our modes, I just added these from my Radiomaster Pocket. If you guys need a tutorial on this, I recommend looking how to set up ELRS, and Captain Drone has a really good video. I'll throw it up on the screen here. So just follow that if you need to figure out how to bind your controller and set up all the switches. PID tune. This is where I had a lot of problems, you guys. So I am going to recommend this. I think the UAV Tech 2 to 4 inch, I would try this preset with dynamic idle and RPM filter. I would try this. This is what I was using in the flight footage, I believe. And then for the filters, I was having some really gnarly gyro issues. Like, here's some of the stuff I was experiencing. If you know what this may be due to, I think I know what it was. I just grabbed one of these. I grabbed noisy build with RPM filtering, this setting right here. You guys maybe play around with the filters depending on how your build is. I think some of my motors were pretty scratchy and it was leading to a lot of noise. Oh yeah, motors tab. Okay, so I'm running motor direction reversed. We're running props out on this. D-Shot 600, bidirectional D-Shot. That's what we've got here. Finally, OSD, you guys set this up however you want. I'm actually missing a couple elements here. I like to have my throttle position somewhere on here. We'll just throw it on the left and that looks good for now. Hopefully I'm not forgetting anything. Now I want to show you guys some flight footage. So I decided I'll revisit this once I receive the new parts. And in the meantime, I'm just going to use older freestyle footage because I'm trying to meet my goal of getting one video per week out. And this will allow me to do it. Okay, so I guess I'll just do a little bit of a live commentary. This is the first time I'm really watching these back since it's been a lot of months. All this footage was captured over the summer when I was really putting a lot of time on this drone because it was so fun. So all of this is no stabilization, and you'll notice the tune is not perfect. There are some sort of like shaky oscillations on like throttle ups, and I'll try to point some of them out here soon. But I think this drone is like the perfect weight class / prop size for a park like this, because as you can see, there's like no people here, but it's not the biggest park in the world, and people do frequent this area and like walk around here. Sometimes they're on the grass. So having this little ripper is really nice as to not scare people away. I think I mentioned earlier, it's like a really inviting drone. And look at those canopies. So this is like the perfect size to dive through those kind of tight spaces, but also you can do like exploratory flights and go through branches and stuff, which I think is pretty sweet. I tried to put this footage at Gyroflow and it made it even worse, so let me know if you guys have any tips for reducing some of that vibration. Sadly, I want to go back and fly this place now that I've developed some of my skills, Shout out to my wife for being a good sport and waiting in the car while I filmed some of this stuff. I was trying to get a little reaction from her. But I want to come back to this park because I think I've improved a decent amount, and it would be fun to try to do some of those dives with more confidence. You can see I wanted to go for one with that red tree, but I think I end up doing it a little bit later. I'm kind of trying to warm up to it. But yeah, you guys, this is all 3S. I don't think I've recorded any 2S packs, but you can expect more of the same, just with a little bit less inertia and fling due to the toned down power and weight with 2S. Most of this is also going to be, oh, I hit myself there. That was crazy. I like had a bunch of cuts on my face. I'll see if I can put a picture on the screen because I know I have one. But I'll let the rest of this play out so you guys can see some of this footage. Clearly my favorite dive. And again, make sure you guys are subbed because I'm going to revisit this spot with the same drone once I'm able to repair the one motor plug. So in conclusion, I spent a long time tuning it in July, got it to fly pretty nicely, and then I had a couple nasty crashes and the motors were really grinding, so I kind of just shelved this thing, flew other drones for a while, but really wanted to revisit this thing for a video because I think it'd be fun for you guys to see this and hopefully build them yourself. But somewhere along the line, I must have flashed the AIO and it had the default settings, so I was right back to square one. I went to the park yesterday to try to tune this thing and had these crazy oscillations. Here's what I'm dealing with. If you know what's causing this, please let me know. So I spent all day today trying to tune that out, going outside, changing a couple filter settings, a couple PID settings, and basically nothing worked. Presets, tuning with people's advice online, literally nothing worked. I finally got in close and started spinning every single motor and looking at the bells, and it seemed like one motor had a bent shaft. So it was kind of like tweaking on the stator while it was rotating. I think this is maybe what was causing the oscillations. Now, while I was ripping out that motor to replace the bell, the plug fell off. The plug fell off. So I decided I'll revisit this once I receive the new parts. And in the meantime, I'm just gonna use older freestyle footage because I'm trying to meet my goal of getting one video per week out. And this will allow me to do it. So who is this quad for? Well, I'm glad you asked, because I think this is really versatile. So for someone coming from 1S like me, I think this is a great stepping stone because if you want to start getting into the territory of like 5-inch-ish freestyle, a 2S is probably going to feel underwhelming, and I talk about this a lot. 2S just oftentimes lacks that fling. Maybe if you get a 2.5 inch like the Caillou Mini, you'll have a little bit more of that. But one thing that I loved about this drone is I couldn't believe how much authority the thing has when you get off the throttle. It just floats through the air like a 5 inch. Obviously not quite as much, but way more than a Whoop or a 2S. So you have this tiny little package that is so cute and so approachable, right? Like you can fly this at a park, it's not that loud, and people are just gonna be like, everyone that's seen this thing in the wild is like, oh my God, that thing is so tiny, that's so cool, you know, showing their kids and everyone's stoked on it. So you get that like approachability from the 2-inch props, the micro size. But the fact that this thing can run on 2S or 3S, I think is incredible, because if you are the type of guy that's coming from, if you are the type of pilot that's coming from a 1S, this is gonna feel really spicy on 3S. I cannot even tell you, the first time I flew this thing, I was in shock of how hard it was to control, literally in shock. It took me like a week to dial in my settings. It took me like a week to lock in and get the muscle memory, but on 2S, it's way more approachable and it still rips. Super fun on 2S. So if you maybe have a 2S drone, like a Whoop, and you wanna try the open props, like a Toothpick style, cannot recommend it enough, guys. And then you can step up to the 3S and really harness that power. You could also build this with like higher KV 2S motors. So it's just so versatile. So in conclusion, if you're more on the beginner side of the spectrum, I think this is a great stepping stone drone, sort of training wheels before your 5-inch or even before your 3.5-inch. I think this is also a great drone for people that fly 5-inch, because if you're really used to 5-inch and you go to a whoop, well, I mean, I've heard Bardwell say like they just feel like they're gonna fall out of the sky, and that's so true. It's not necessarily a bad thing, it's just very different. And if you're used to a 5-inch on 6S, or even a 3.5-inch on 4S, well, the 3S is not gonna be that much of a step down. 3S feels really powerful, and the flight times are pretty good. I think I was getting kind of close to 5 minutes. And lastly, if you fly parks and you're a beginner or an expert, and those parks are sometimes populated with people, well then this is your best friend, because like I said, quiet, powerful, but not too powerful, and lightweight. So if you crash, hopefully you don't have to replace that whole frame, because it's just not that much mass smashing into whatever you're smashing into. Okay, thanks so much for watching, you guys. Make sure you're subscribed, because I'm definitely going to revisit this thing when I get the new motors. We're gonna go hard on the freestyle. I think this thing is gonna be my favorite drone in 2026, genuinely. I love this platform. I love 3S, the fact that it can do 2S also, so stay tuned for that. Also, next week's video, I have a very special package arriving, so I'm gonna be making a video with a couple new FPV things. Stay tuned for that. Blah, blah, blah. I think that's it. Peace.